Greetings. Welcome to another installment of Political Empire. I'm your host, Jeff Horseman with the Press Enterprise and PE.com. And in today's show, we're going to be discussing a Riverside County supervisor's attempt to not get anything for his retirement from the taxpayers. Then we're going to talk a little bit about Murrieta Creek in the Southwest County and a big flood that happened 20 years ago and what's being done or not being done to prevent that. So, newly elected Riverside County Supervisor Kevin Jeffries is finding it's a little bit harder than he thought to fulfill one of his campaign promises. Jeffries, who took office in January, filed paperwork with the county to decline a taxpayer-funded pension. He was then told the county had to contribute money to a 401A account. Now, this is something Jeffries didn't want. He said he actually got in a little bit of an argument with the county over this. Now, it's technically a rule that they have to give him a 401A if he declines a pension, and so it's anticipated in the next few months that the Board of Supervisors are going to get around to changing that, and so Kevin Jeffries can fulfill his pledge not to take a taxpayer-funded retirement. Now we're joined by reporter Nelsie Rodriguez, who recently wrote about the 20th anniversary of a major flood of Murrieta Creek, as well as a public works project that's designed to prevent a repeat of that catastrophe. So she's joining us by phone. So Nelsie, talk about what happened back in 1993 and a little bit about this flood control project.
Sure. In 1993, so exactly 20 years ago, a few weeks ago, there was a major flood. There were about 16 days of consecutive rain, and the Murrieta Creek flooded, and because there are no flood control measures in the creek, it flooded all of Old Town Temecula, major parts of Old Town Murrieta, and also caused significant damage to Camp Pendleton. There were hundreds of millions of dollars of military equipment that were lost in that flood, plus millions of dollars to damages and homes in both Temecula and Murrieta, and both cities had to dig into their own general fund to try to help repair some of the damage caused by the water. So people were evacuated from their homes. They weren't able to return home for days. There were emergency shelters set up at the high schools, and the city was generally underwater. So there's a new project to, well, it's not new. They, after the flood, the leaders of the cities and the Riverside County Flood Control District realized they needed to do something to repair the creek because this isn't the first flood. This wasn't the first flood that they had had. So there's a major project that's going to cost more than $120 million to install a basin and reaffirm the creek beds so that to prevent erosion and prevent flooding of it again. However, that project has been stalled for years because of funding. It's the Army Corps of Engineers has signed on to it, so that means that the federal government wants to participate in the project and they want to put money behind it. However, that also means that we are competing on a national scale with other major projects to get funding and for timing and for review. So the project is it's in dead water right now.
What are the prospects, you think, for it to move forward anytime soon?
Well, Murrieta and Temecula have started talking about what it would take for the two cities to take over the project. So, eliminating the federal involvement in the project, which could help move the project along faster. However, that would mean that all the funding for it would come from Riverside County taxpayer dollars, specifically Temecula and Murrieta and the Flood Control District, which they get money from property taxes. So the entire county of Riverside would be pitching into this. And it's also a project that is way out of the scope of anything that the Flood Control District has ever handled before. They have one other project that's bigger than the Murrieta Creek project, but most of the projects that the Flood Control District handles are in the $15 million range, and this is more than $120 million. So it's a significant project, and to get it moving, we're going to need either money from the feds or for the two cities to officially remove the feds and start putting our own tax dollars towards the work.
All right. And what people may or may not be aware is this has become a political football of sorts lately with Riverside County Supervisor Jeff Stone, who's contemplating running for Congress against incumbent Republican Ken Calvert in 2014. When he was, made that announcement, he was saying, hey, Ken Calvert hasn't done enough to move this project forward. This is a much needed project. Ken Calvert should have done a lot more to get money for this, to which Congressman Calvert has responded, well, I was one of the first people to help get money for the first phase of this. So it's interesting how, on the 20th anniversary of this, of this flood, we're still talking about this project and how it's become kind of a fodder in, what may be, a political battle going into next year between the supervisor and the congressman. So thank you very much, Nelsie, for your time. And thank you for watching Political Empire. We'll see you next time.